July 11th, 1944, 08:42 hours, near Saint-Germain-sur-Sèvre, Normandy. The hedgerows are still dripping with dawn rain when the first American Sherman pushes its hull through the tangled green. Its engine growls low, impatient, unaware. A pair of infantrymen walk beside it, panting through the humid morning air, boots sinking into mud that smells of gunpowder and rotting leaves. Then, a sound. A sharp, metallic clack echoing across the field. The Sherman commander, Lieutenant Frank Myers, freezes mid-sentence. He can't quite place it. Not a rifle bolt, not a tank track. Something else. Something wrong. He lifts his binoculars. And that's when he sees it. Half a kilometer away, barely visible between the slanted barn roof and a line of apple trees, sits a long, black barrel. Thin, precise, unnaturally still. A barrel that isn't supposed to be that far forward. A barrel he recognizes from every briefing he's ever sat through. The 8.8 centimeter Flak 36. The 88. The gun Allied crews whisper about like it's a living thing. Before Myers can shout a warning, the world flashes white. Crack. A single tungsten cord shell rips through the air at nearly 3,000 feet per second. You can almost feel it slice the space between the hedgerows, an invisible spear traveling faster than fear. It hits the Sherman low on the front glasses. There's no explosion at first, only a sound, like someone smashing an iron door with a battering ram. Then flames burst from the driver's hatch. Infantry nearby are thrown to the ground by the shockwave as the tank's interior cooks off. The 88mm gun crew doesn't cheer. They don't move. They simply reload and adjust elevation by a few degrees, as precise as surgeons. Because they know something the Americans don't. This shot shouldn't have been possible at this range, not with this accuracy, not with this power. But the 88 isn't a normal anti-aircraft gun anymore. In Normandy, it has become something else, something deadlier. A weapon forged from necessity, engineering brilliance, and brutal battlefield improvisation. A gun that terrifies tank crews before they ever see it. So why was it so good? Why did its name alone send chills through veteran crews from North Africa to the Eastern Front? Was it truly a miracle of German engineering? Or just the right weapon, in the right place, at the right time? As Lieutenant Myers' burning Sherman collapses into the mud, the German gun commander wipes the rain from his sights and scans for his next target. He knows the Americans will keep coming. He knows their armor is thicker here, stronger than before. But he smiles anyway, because he trusts the gun behind him, and he's about to show exactly why. The weapon no one intended to fear. Smoke still hangs in the air over the ruined hedgerow. The German crew doesn't flinch as another American artillery round thunders somewhere behind them. They've heard far worse. Their gun has heard far worse. Oberfeldwebel Karl Winkler, 40 years old, a veteran of Spain, Africa, and now France, leans over the breach like a man greeting an old friend. He runs a gloved hand along the recoil cylinders, feeling the warm vibration pulsing through the steel. To him, the 88 is not just a gun, it's a survivor. But it wasn't built for this. You wouldn't know it from the fear it inspires, but the Flak 36 started life pointed upward, not across a battlefield. An anti-aircraft gun meant to swat high-altitude bombers. A weapon of geometry and timing, not ambush and tank killing. And that's what makes its story so strange. Because on paper, it should never have become the most feared tank killer of the war. Not in 1936, not in 1939, not ever. Yet the clues were always there. Even before the war, during secret trials in the dust of Kummersdorf,
engineers noted something curious. The 88's high muzzle velocity wasn't just good for reaching aircraft, it was devastating against anything with armor. Its long barrel and precise optics made it a natural sharpshooter. Its sturdy carriage, engineered to absorb vertical recoil, handled horizontal recoil just as easily. Still, nobody imagined it would one day punch through 100 millimeters of steel as if it were wet paper. Not until Spain. Winkler remembers the stories from the Condor Legion, the first time German crews angled their 88s downward instead of up. When Republican tanks rolled across open ground, a single shell from the Flak tore through them with a violence no one expected. Crews reported kills at ranges where most anti-tank guns could barely scratch paint. It was the first whisper, the first rumor, the beginning of a legend. But legends don't matter until the enemy believes them. And that moment came under the North African sun. Picture Tobruk in 1941. Matildas, near invulnerable to light German anti-tank guns, advancing across the desert like iron giants. The 88s, dragged into position out of sheer desperation, lowered their barrels and took aim. Crack. One Matilda stopped. Crack. Another. Then another. A weapon built to fire into the stratosphere suddenly became Rommel's scalpel, precise, deadly, irreplaceable. And word spread. Across the British lines, across the American lines, across every command tent that had ever underestimated German engineering. By the time Normandy came, the 88 had become something else entirely. A myth that bled into reality. A myth Myers's crew learned in their final seconds. But why did it work so well? Why this gun when so many others existed? Why did seasoned tankers say they'd rather face a Tiger tank than a hidden 88 in the hedgerows? Winkler signals his loader again. He knows the next shot will tell the answer better than any manual. Because the truth wasn't just in the engineering. It was in how the Germans used it. And what's coming next will show exactly why the Allies feared it more than any single tank on the battlefield.
The ambush artist of every battlefield. Winkler's crew moves with the rhythm of a machine that's been trained in fire and terror. Loader Hans shoves another armor-piercing round into the breach, hands black with carbon, face streaked with sweat and rain. Gunner Lucas adjusts the elevation wheel by millimeters, breath steady, eyes fixed on the hedgerow line where he knows the next Sherman will appear. But the secret of their deadliness isn't just discipline. It's positioning. The 88 doesn't dominate a battlefield by brute force alone. It dominates because its crews know where to make it invisible. The hedgerows of Normandy are perfect for this. Thick walls of earth and ancient roots packed tight and rising shoulder high. The Germans carve firing slits into them, just wide enough for the barrel, just narrow enough to vanish after each recoil. To an approaching tank, the hedgerow looks solid, safe, harmless, until it fires. You can almost feel the tension as the next Sherman edges forward, turret scanning left and right. Its crew knows the first tank died instantly. They heard the scream over the radio. They know something's out there, something with a long barrel and a reputation. But they don't know where. They never do. And that's the 88's true genius. It fights wars of information, not just firepower. The gun silhouette is tall when placed in the open, vulnerable, easy to target. But the Germans rarely make that mistake. They bury it behind hillsides, farms, burnt-out cottages,
They lower it into pits scraped into the soil. They hide it in churchyards, haylofts, even basements. Everything but the muzzle is concealed. And that muzzle only appears for seconds at a time, just long enough to ruin a tank crew's day. The 88's long reach only magnifies this trick. It can kill from over a mile away if the terrain allows. It can punch through a Sherman or Churchill before they even come within effective range. Its shells travel so fast that tank crews often don't hear the shot, only the impact. That's why the Allies fear it. Not because it's unstoppable, but because they never see it until it's already too late. Back at Winkler's position, the moment arrives. The second Sherman crawls into the open. Lucas breathes out slowly, aligning his crosshairs just above its left drive sprocket. He whispers, "Foya." Crack! The recoil shakes the Hedgerow, but the gun barely moves, a testament to the Flak's massive cradle and hydro-pneumatic dampers. The shell slams into the Sherman's hull with perfect placement. The tank shudders, tracks snapping apart like severed tendons. It grinds to a halt, crippled. Not destroyed, not yet. But that's the punishment of the 88. It doesn't have to kill in one hit. It just has to pin you in front of its barrel. The American commander pops the hatch, scrambling out as burning oil pours from the ruined track assembly. His gunner tries to traverse the turret, but the Hedgerow hides the German position too well. They're blind, and they know it. Winkler calmly orders a follow-up shot. The round leaves the breech like a thunderclap. A heartbeat later, the Sherman erupts. The Hedgerow shimmers with heat. The acrid stink of burning gasoline drifts through the rain. And for a brief moment, everything grows tragically quiet. Just the hiss of wet leaves and distant artillery. But Winkler isn't satisfied. He knows the Americans aren't done. He knows they'll bring something heavier this time. Maybe a Firefly, maybe a 76mm Sherman, maybe artillery zeroing in. And that's when the weakness of the 88 becomes deadly obvious. A weakness the crew can already feel trembling through the earth beneath them. Its greatest strength is also its biggest flaw. And whatever's coming next is about to expose it